For a long period of time, the running back position could have been argued to be the most important position in all of football, as many teams, especially from the early Super Bowl era until the mid-80s, the running back position was everything for them, and there were many Super Bowl winning teams early on in the history of the NFL that you may barely know about the QB of the team, or the QB wasn't that great or wasn't a Hall of Famer, but you know about their running back. Teams like the 85 Bears with Walter Payton, 84 Raiders with Marcus Allen, and even teams that were well-rounded but had all-time great running backs too, like the 90s Cowboys and Emmitt Smith, the greatest show on turf who had Marshall Faulk, all the way up to Marshawn Lynch with the Legion of Boom. The running back position has always been one of the most impactful to success in the sport, but today, I'm going to be breaking down some of the most impressive single-game outputs by running backs in NFL history. Before we get into the video, if you enjoy NFL content like this and you want to see content like this every single week, then subscribe to the channel. All of my socials will be in the description down below, so go check those out as well. Thanks to everyone who's been subscribing, liking, commenting, and sharing the videos. Your support means a lot. Now enjoy the rest of the video. Walter Payton is one of the greatest running backs we've ever seen and is arguably the greatest running back in NFL history. And on November 20th, 1977, he showed why, as he set a then record in a single game with 40 carries for 275 yards and a touchdown. The 40 carries was not a record, as Franco Harris had 41 a season prior, but it was good for second all time, and Payton was always a high volume running back and absolutely embodied the high carry workhorse running back of the era, and it was something we regularly saw in that era, but he was probably the greatest of that breed in his era and had easily one of the greatest running back seasons ever that year, as he won MVP and led his team to a 9-5 record, winning almost every award possible, as he was the NFL MVP, Offensive Player of the Year, and also made first team All-Pro and was obviously a Pro Bowler. Payton was easily one of the greatest backs of all time, and once he won a Super Bowl leading his offense in 1985, going down as one of the greatest NFL teams in the history of the NFL. A lot of people say it's the greatest team in NFL history with that great defense, the Fridge Perry, and all those guys. He was cemented as a Hall of Famer, and this 1977 performance will be cemented forever as well. On October 22nd, 2000, Corey Dillon broke Payton's record of 275 rushing yards with an absurd 278 yards and 2 touchdowns. But something that makes this game even more crazy is it was on only 22 carries, which comes out to around 12.6 yards per carry. He was getting a first down every single time he ran the ball, basically. And this can easily be argued to be the greatest rushing game in NFL history. Dillon was a great back when he played, as every year he started 15 or more games. He broke 1,000 rushing yards. And this game in 2000 season has to be one of the most efficient of all time, as Dillon was able to get these on such a low amount of carries, especially in an era where running backs were still very workhorse type backs, and there were still a lot of workhorse type backs, some being great, some being not that great. He was a very efficient running back and had an all-time great game, and he was able to go on and win a ring with the Pats. And I'll forever love Corey Dillon, as he was a running back for one of those Pats teams that won, I believe, in 04 or 03, one of those years. And yeah, man, I'm a Patriots fan, so I'm always gonna mess with Corey Dillon. The 2003 season by Jamal Lewis has gone down in history as one of the greatest running back seasons in NFL history, where Lewis rushed for 2,000 yards in one season. And it's crazy, especially because Lewis was a great player, but he never had another season where he touched even 1,500 yards. But he averaged a whopping 129 yards per game in 2003 and had a monster game on September 24th, 2003, where he had 295 yards and 2 touchdowns versus the division rival Cleveland Browns, absolutely dominating them early on in the season. And this game is good for second all-time in a single game, only short by 1 yard to the next guy on this list. The next guy on this list being all-day Adrian Peterson, as he rushed for an absurd 296 yards and 3 touchdowns versus San Diego Chargers on November 4th, 2007. And this, in my opinion, has to be the greatest rushing game in the history of the NFL. The biggest reason being that Peterson did all of this, he was only a rookie, and by far, this is a hands down, in my opinion, the greatest performance by a rookie ever and the best by a running back. Literally in terms of yardage. And to add 3 touchdowns to that as well is just insane. And why, in my opinion, AP should be a Hall of Famer. And obviously he did just officially retire last year, but he definitely should be a lock for the Hall of Fame in my eyes, and I think in most people's eyes, as he is probably the greatest back in his era. And winning an MVP in the modern era while being a running back and rushing over 2,000 yards in a season in 2012 cements him as a top 5 running back in my eyes. And there's no real doubts about it. But yeah, all day Adrian Peterson, one of the greatest running backs of all time, with that absurd 296 yards, and he also had 1 reception for 19 yards. So he ended the day with about 315 yards from scrimmage. The last player to have over 275 yards, which is what started this list with Walter Payton in 1977, is Jerome Harrison. And you may be thinking, who? Because this is one of the most shocking surprises in an NFL game of all time. Most shocking surprise NFL performance probably in the history of the sport. As out of his 63 career games, Jerome Harrison only started in 10, and he was a very average back at best. But on December 20th, 2009, Harrison had the game of his life, rushing for 286 yards, 3 touchdowns, and he had the 3rd most rushing yards in a single game in the history of the NFL. Also finishing with 303 total yards in the game, and he finished his career with only 1,600 rushing yards total. And this was one of the 10 games he started in, but for this one night, he showed his worth and cemented himself in NFL history. And in all of these videos, these type of videos I've done, there's been Joe Cap, Cloyce Box, and Jerome Harrison. All 3 of these guys, if you notice, it's not really on purpose, but all these guys were in the top. I know it's not always the same. The last 2 were based off of yardage, and the first one was off touchdowns, but it's kind of insane. There's these guys who come in, and they just have insane games like this, and Jerome Harrison with, again, one of the craziest surprise performances that nobody really talks about because, again, Jerome Harrison was not that great of a back of all time. So it makes sense that it's not too talked about, but definitely one of the craziest performances of all time. And that really wraps it up for the video. You know, the running back position is really starting to die out, and it's obviously not the same. I mean, we saw Josh Jacobs yesterday go for 230 and absolutely carry the Raiders on his back. But even this year, there's going to be a lot of running back free agents. People are saying, oh, they don't want to spend so much money on Saquon or Miles Sanders or all these backs that are going to be free agents this year, but you know, I agree that it's pretty interchangeable at this point. Like, if you have a good system for your running back and a good O-line, you can definitely be successful at the running back position and have a good rushing attack. But I think all time we definitely need to put some respect on the running back position, man. But if you enjoyed this video, leave a like, comment, and subscribe, and comment what other types of videos I should do, if any. But I'm out here. Peace. LE out.